Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to take another look at why fishing reels fail, and we're going to use this one, which just came into the shop. This is a Penn SpinFisher. It's the 450 SS, which means skirted spool. Well, if you're noticing, that spool is not going up and down. So there's an issue with this reel, and it's in the oscillation system. It's either the main gear, or it's the crosswind block, or it's the oscillation gear. One of those three is failing. So let's take a look at which one that is, and we'll kind of show you how to narrow down the focus. So we're going to start by removing the exterior parts. This has a screw out handle, but sometimes this main gear is held in by a screw. Well, this one is not. So I always like to check that side before I go much further, and it's easiest to do that right from the start. Alright, we're going to take the handle and turn it clockwise to remove the handle. And you do not need to remove this collar, but underneath that collar there is a felt washer right here that holds oil to keep that bearing oiled. So if you're wondering where that part is or what you should do as part of your normal service, you want to take care of that bearing, and you want to keep that washer oiled. Well, these case screws come out next. They certainly are tight. Well, while I'm doing this, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. To those 19,000 plus that have, thank you very much for subscribing and continuing to view these videos. I appreciate that. It's what keeps the channel vibrant. If you haven't subscribed and you're interested in the art of reel repair, if you'd like to see how fishing reels are made, learn a little bit about the history of their manufacturers, a little bit about the time frame that they came into prominence, and so on, well, this is a good channel for you. I work on all kinds of fishing reels. And if you hit the notification button, well, you'll see which ones I'm working on, and you'll be able to make a decision as to whether you want to watch those. I took the 3 screws out. They're all the same size, so it doesn't matter which posts they go back into. Now we should be able to remove the case. Well, and as is frequently the issue here, these bearings tend to stick. If the bearing is stuck, just keep working it. Sometimes you can just kind of grab the side of it, lever it, and pull it up, and that will free it up. You can see that there's a little bit of dried grease in there that was probably holding it down. Well, this is curious. This whole thing should be going up. We have a main gear that's spinning, but nothing else is. That would suggest to me that the back end of this gear is broken. The back end of the gear drives the oscillation system, and that there's a gear back there that has a stud on it. It's called the Oscillation Gear. And to get to that, we have to remove these 2 screws, which are holding a plate that attaches the axle shaft. When you take your pieces and parts off, please make sure that you put them in a convenient place that you can locate them when it's time to put them back together again. I use a parts tray. It's a piece of an old fast food container. It works for me. You might find something different, but that's okay too. Alright, there's 2 screws and a plate removed. You can hold that assembly now, and you can remove the axle shaft. That simply comes up, and you can see where that plate rests on this reel. So it's going to go like that, and when it's tied down, that axle shaft will work with the crosswind block, which is what it's tied to below. We should be able to remove that gear now, and that's curious because, well, the gear appears to be okay. There we go. So as I mentioned, you want to keep checking, and here's the problem. The problem is that there is a stud on the back case here. It holds the oscillation gear, and you can see that that stud has been separated from the case. It's broken off. So we have a floating piece here. The main gear is turning the oscillation gear, but the oscillation gear is slipping, right? It's coming down, so it can't drive the crosswind block. So we need to go and get ourselves probably 2 pieces. We'll see if we can knock the one out, but we probably need 2 pieces. We're going to need the case, and I don't know if that's available any longer. Well, I thought we might have trouble with the stud, but here's your stud that's broken off, and that's why this one is not working. It's separated from there. There's no way to crazy glue or epoxy or do anything with that stud. The case has to be replaced. Hopefully that case is still available. If it's not, well, it's a shame that the reel will have been lost to that. So there you go. That's one. We're going to do a second one. We're going to show you a problem with a Daiwa reel and how to diagnose that problem as well. So I'm going to stop the video for a moment. We'll be right back. Well, here's part 2. This is a Daiwa Saltist LW. It's the Saltist 20, I believe. It's the Saltist 20 HA. This came into my shop in pieces. I was asked to put it back together again, and I did. And we've got it spinning, but unfortunately, the line guide is not moving. Well, what causes the line guide not to move? So that's part 2 of this program here, if you will, in diagnosis. There's 3 or 4 elements to the line guide and its movement, and you need to check all of them. The first one is the line guide itself. Does it move? Well, we've been seeing that it does move, so it's not jammed there. The second one would involve the pawl. The pawl is under the cap, and the pawl is a V-shaped cylinder. It has a fork on each 2 pieces on each side, points. If one of those points is damaged, well, it could cause this. Or there's a drive assembly under here. The drive assembly in this reel converts the energy of the spool, there's a driver on the back of the spool, to an idler gear. The idler gear is like a clutch in a car. And that transfers the power from the spool to the worm drive. And if you notice, when we turn the reel upside down, this should be turning. Well, it's turning sporadically, right? It's not a consistent turn there. So something's going on inside here, and that's what we're going to try and see what it is. Of course, I know what it is. If you have any questions on this video, or any in particular, if you leave those questions, I will try to answer them for you. Well, so you want to remove the side plate and examine the pieces. What you can see in this one clearly is that the teeth that connect between the spool, well, this is the spool one, the teeth that connect between the idler gear and the drive on this one is all chewed up. So something happened here. Maybe line got inside of it, maybe it got tangled in a snag, and they tried to power out of it, and all the teeth got stripped off. Well, the good news is that we've identified the problem. The bad news, there's always bad news, is that that part's no longer available. So that kind of makes me not like this reel. The Daiwa Saltist reel is not a cheap reel, and not to have the parts to support this is it's a shame. Well, you can see here I'm turning the worm gear drive, and the line guide and the pawl and everything is working fine. So that's not the issue with this reel. It's all about that idler gear, and I've checked the parts suppliers and it's no longer available. What a shame. All right, so that's how you do the diagnosis of a line guide issue. That's also how you do the diagnosis of an oscillation gear. Both of them are interrelated. They both kind of are oscillation, right? Actually, some manufacturers use a worm gear and drive to move the axle shaft up and down, just like this one moves the line gear from side to side. So I hope you've enjoyed that little bit of insight there. I hope you learned a little bit from it. To all of our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you've been doing to keep us safe. And to everybody, have a great day fishing. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.